This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. The Bill and Ted sequel is coming, which is the real sign that 2020 has completely gone off the rails. Here's what else you need to know right now. The World Health Organization is walking back their previous claim that asymptomatic transmission of coronavirus is very rare. So basically, the WHO wants people to know that yes, actually, you can transmit the virus even if you don't have symptoms. That, of course, has made tracking the virus really tricky, and it's part of the reason many public health experts are skeptical about economies opening back up, along with what's still a high number of new cases daily.
Almost 7 million cases of COVID-19 have now been reported to WHO, and almost 400,000 deaths.
Long lines, inoperable voting machines, delayed openings of polling locations. Georgia voters reported myriad issues during their primary today. On Twitter, Atlanta's mayor said, "Please do not allow your vote to be suppressed." 4 other states held primaries today, which is significant considering states have been canceling them left and right since the pandemic began, some more than once. And quite a few states have started taking down statues, plaques, memorials dedicated to the Confederacy in the wake of worldwide protests for racial justice. That sentiment has also extended to military installations. The U.S. Marine Corps has ordered the removal of public displays of the Confederate flag, and the U.S. Army is considering getting rid of Confederate names at forts across the country. Millions of protesters across dozens of countries all over the world. All that was set in motion by the death of one man in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and today he's being laid to rest. Newsy's Jamal Andrus has more on the funeral of George Floyd and how his death is still resonating.
After services in Minnesota and North Carolina, hundreds gathered in Houston, Texas to honor the life and tragic death of George Floyd. About 500 people attended the private service, including politicians, celebrities, and the families of other victims of police brutality, including family members of Michael Brown, Botham Jean, and Eric Garner.
In this city, we will ban chokeholds and strangleholds. In this city, we will require de-escalation. In this city, you have to give a warning before you shoot. In this city, you have a duty to intervene. In this city, we will require comprehensive reporting. In this city, you must exhaust all alternatives before shooting.
These laws need to be changed. No more hate crimes, please. Someone said, make America great again, but when has it ever been great?
The Reverend Al Sharpton gave the eulogy for the services in Houston and Minneapolis. In both, he spoke to the tragic nature of Floyd's death and the bigger problem it represents.
They rejected him for jobs. They rejected him for positions. They rejected him to play certain teams. God took the rejected stone and made him the cornerstone of a movement that's going to change the whole wide world.
The presumptive Democratic and presidential nominee Joe Biden met with and offered his condolences to Floyd's family Monday. He also recorded a video message that was shown during the funeral.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can't turn away. We must not turn away. We cannot leave this moment thinking we can once again turn away from racism that stings at our very soul.
Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police on May 25th set off an unprecedented series of national and international protests in the name of ending police brutality and bringing about racial equity. In the aftermath of Floyd's death, all 4 officers involved in his arrest have been charged, including Derek Chauvin, who put his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. Just a few miles from where this service took place, George Floyd will be buried next to his mother, who he called out to during his last moments. Jamal Andrus, Newsy, Chicago.
Typically, an election year is just about wall-to-wall coverage of the campaign around this time. 2020 had other ideas, but there's still a race going on, and there's still a question of who will be in that race running with Joe Biden. We break it down next.
Welcome to Newsy. We're here to get you up to speed on the latest headlines, dig deeper on investigations and documentaries, and bring you special live events as they happen. Streaming 24 hours a day, wherever and whenever you need us. Newsy, be informed, not influenced.
Every patient was a dollar sign.
I do not think I was an aggressive dentist.
Losing your perfectly healthy teeth. How dare you try to do that to me?
Nothing's wrong with making money if you're doing it ethically. Absolutely not.
A great sidekick is always good to have. Batman needed Robin, Frodo needed Samwise, and I need whatever is in this mug every single night. Now, when you're running for president, that sidekick is really important. It's their name next to yours on the ballot, which is why presidential campaigns are typically pretty thorough when vetting their options for a vice presidential running mate. Newsy's Andrew Rafferty has the story.
Before we see something like this,
the next vice president of the United States, Governor Mike Pence.
We're going to hear a lot of questions like this.
How's the vetting process going so far? Are you being vetted by Mr. Biden?
The largely secretive vetting process used to pick a running mate is now well underway for the Biden campaign. And to get a better sense of what that means, Newsy spoke with 3 people who have each gone through the process multiple times. We found there's a pretty standard playbook presidential nominees use to pick a running mate. First comes the ask.
It began with a call from Barack Obama asking if I was willing to be considered. It is a pretty arduous process. You're turning over, basically everything about your private life, your personal life.
Sometimes that can take a little convincing.
When Mitt called me in 12 and said, I want you to be considered, I really didn't think I would be a front runner in 12 for a variety of reasons. So I told Mitt, I said, look, I went through this in 08. It's a ton of work.
Until he learned the questionnaire in 2012 was essentially the same as the one he filled out 4 years earlier.
Here, one of his staff members disclosed that the questionnaire was identical to the McCain questionnaire in 08, with 1 or 2 exceptions. And I said, well, I've already got that done. So then I was more willing to go through the process in 12, not having to put it all back together again.
After that comes the interviews. First, a full day of questions with lawyers helping the campaign, followed by a sit-down with the candidate. Then Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack used that to make his pitch to Democratic nominee John Kerry in 2004.
I was energetic and I was passionate, and I said, if you put me on the ticket, I guarantee you we'll take Pennsylvania because I'm from Pennsylvania. We're going to take Ohio. I think we can take Iowa. I think we can take Wisconsin.
An energy he did not have when he met with Hillary Clinton in 2016.
I just didn't interview very well. If I had the same passion that I had with John Kerry, it might have been different.
All of it going on under intense scrutiny from the media.
As the time deadline draws near, the press takes on, a life of its own in terms of the speculation, who's on the short list, who isn't. If you're deemed to be on the short list, the press begins to stake out your house.
I had a surreal experience of watching Keith Olbermann on MSNBC describing me cooking myself breakfast in our kitchen. While I was cooking myself breakfast, they were filming through the front windows of our home into our kitchen.
Their advice to the group believed to be going through the process now, total transparency.
When then Senator Obama called me, actually it was in our personal interview at the end. He had all my vetting materials, and he said it was all fine with him. Nothing in there was problematic, but that if there was something that they had missed, I needed to tell him because he said, look, they're talking to people that I was in first grade with. So, it will come out.
The fact is, people in your business do a better job of vetting the vice presidential candidates than they do the presidential candidates, in one sense. And certainly the campaigns do a better job of vetting the VP candidate.
Because at the end of the day, even having a squeaky clean record might not be enough when it comes to making the decision.
The frustrating part is it comes down to things that really are beyond your control. The nominee always says, we need to pick somebody who's ready to be president. And they probably mean that, and ultimately they probably pick somebody who's ready to be president, hopefully. But the people who've been in the room many times say it always comes down to something political.
And if you're not chosen, these 3 say don't fret it. You probably have a lot going for you anyway.
If it was meant to be, it's a tremendous honor. And if it wasn't, it's still an honor to be considered. And most of these folks are senators or governors or otherwise successful in their lives. And you got a lot to be grateful for, right?
Andrew Rafferty, Newsy, Washington.
We just watched a video from our senior politics editor, Andrew Rafferty, and we decided to have him on the show to play Explain This. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Good, Christian. Congrats on the show.
Thank you so much. Let's show you this first image. Andrew, explain this first one.
Yeah, so this is U.S. Senator Rob Portman. He's a senator from Ohio. He's still in Congress right now. And this photo was back in 2012. Remember, that was when Barack Obama was running for his second term. And Portman was one of the finalists to be chosen for the Republican nominee Mitt Romney's running mates. And so one of the fun dynamics of we call it the Veepstakes, once you get a couple people that you're pretty sure in the media that these are the folks who are on the short list, media go and really follow these folks everywhere they go. This photo you'll see was at a bike race. That was actually the day that Mitt Romney announced Paul Ryan, then a congressman from Wisconsin, as his running mate. He was a little down, as one might be, having gone through this process.
I imagine so. He's like, hey, tell me what it's like to not be selected, sir.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead and bring up the second image. Andrew, can you please explain this?
Yeah, well, that's Geraldine Ferraro. She was the first woman to be nominated for a national office back in 1984. She was chosen by Walter Mondale in the 84 election. And it was seen kind of at the time as, a little bit of a long shot there because Mondale's campaign was faltering. But it'd be 24 years until we had another female vice presidential pick. That, of course, was Sarah Palin. And the comparisons then were made between Palin and Ferraro, but Ferraro was much more of a transformational figure in Democratic politics. I think she kind of inspired a lot of people. Her run was largely seen as kind of opening the door, while the Palin run was kind of derailed by a lot of other things that didn't have that kind of transformational effect.
I think I remember that. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to this last image.
So, this is Democratic nominee Joe Biden. We mentioned it was 24 years between Ferraro and Palin. And we know that it's not going to be that long until we see another female vice presidential candidate.
And I commit that I will, in fact, I'll pick a woman to be vice president.
What is something that you want audiences to understand about the vetting process?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting refrains I heard from three people who have each gone through it multiple times, so they are certainly experienced in it. And each of them kind of said that in some ways, the vice presidential vetting process is more intense than the presidential vetting process. Your vice presidential, you're going through your college newspaper articles, of course, your health records, everything you've said or done, along with a lot of stuff that your family has said and done, is going to be under a microscope.
I'm curious to know, how would you fare in a vetting process if somebody started going through your college record?
Man. I am ready to announce that I am taking myself out of consideration for the vice presidential nomination. You're hearing it, making some news tonight on in the Loop, Christian. So
I'm right there with you, man. That's the last thing I want. Yeah, no vetting process.
No, I would not live up to the scrutiny.
I appreciate you explain this with us. Learned a little something there. Hopefully we can have you back again, Andrew Rafferty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we're back, we'll take a look at what's missing from content moderation at tech companies during this pandemic. Here's a hint. They're up to 60% water.
At Newsy, we're focused on facts and solutions.
Talking with medical workers on the front lines, decision makers, and everyday people.
All of us fighting COVID-19.
Newsy, be informed, not influenced.
We're the ones that created this mess, and we're passing it on to our kids. And they're going to look at us one day and say, what the hell are you thinking about? What was you thinking about?
With more employees working from home, big tech companies have had to rely on artificial intelligence to moderate content and enforce company policies. As Newsy's Tyler Adkison explains, without a human touch, some innocuous posts are getting caught up in a digital dragnet.
It's no secret social media companies have struggled with moderating bad content for years, and experts say COVID-19 adds a new layer to the problem, as more of the content moderation burden has shifted from humans to artificial intelligence.
Content moderation, in a sense, was stepped up across the board during the coronavirus period. A lot of material was taken down that was pushing false preventive steps, false cures. It's such a vital part without which their companies just wouldn't work.
Barrett's report details problems with the widespread practice of outsourcing content moderation jobs to third-party contractors. It also looks at how COVID-19 has impacted those operations, as companies don't always allow moderators to work from home for security or privacy reasons.
The three big platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, announced publicly that because their outsourced moderators were going to be basically sent home, that the companies were going to shift more of the burden for content moderation over to automated systems. They said up front that we're likely to have more false positives. And the reason is because the technology is not as refined as they would like it to be.
Barrett noted that prior to COVID-19, artificial intelligence was responsible for flagging a significant proportion of bad material on platforms, and was particularly good at identifying things like spam or nudity. But since AI started reviewing a greater share of posts, the system showed it judged content with less nuance than humans.
There was an instance with Facebook involving taking down posts by people who were voluntarily stitching masks together for first responders and donating them because the AI had been so calibrated and fine-tuned to pick out profiteering and commercialization of products related to the coronavirus that it snapped up this completely innocent set of posts.
And this is all occurring as social media giants see record-breaking traffic on their platforms. In his study, Barrett found that every day, 3 million Facebook posts are flagged for review by 15,000 Facebook content moderators. The ratio of moderators to users is 1 to 160,000.
If you have a volume of that nature, those humans, those people, are going to have an enormous burden of making decisions on hundreds of discrete items each workday.
It's unclear how long AI will keep taking on this added content burden, as Facebook has only begun to slowly reopen some of its 20-plus moderation centers. Barrett says moving forward, returning employees and content moderation itself should be embraced as more crucial to the company.
The stature and status of the people who do it should be higher. They should be getting, to use Facebook as the main example, they should be getting Facebook scale compensation and crucially benefits.
Tyler Adkisson, Newsy, Chicago.
I promise this is the last time you're going to have to see these ads for this show.
We're going to go deep.
We drove across the state to get here. We're working hard to get you the news you need.
We dig a little deeper on the stories of the day.
That's why we're here.
To help start making sense of it all.
Sure. Memes and cat videos are fun, but actual news might be a bit more useful. Follow Newsy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get straightforward, opinion-free news right on your social news feed.
A lot of us are finding some newfound freedom as restrictions are lifted across the country. But big social gatherings like, say, comedy night at your local bar are still on pause, in person at least. In this story for Newsy's virology series, a fur-clad Cody LeGros shows us how some comedians have put the social back in social distancing.
Let's face it, working from home is one thing, but playing from home? Yeah, that requires a little more imagination.
This is iced coffee, by the way.
At the same time, bros are beer ponging via broadband.
Oh.
There's a drag queen lip syncing for her life on a live stream.
Put on some makeup. Turn on the 8-track.
As the house party evolves, so is how we're finding a way to laugh. During a pandemic, we're putting the social in social distance.
As in, I am not alone because we are doing something together.
A new Newsy Ipsos survey reveals video chat use has increased by double digits since last month. 35% of respondents say they video chatted more often than normal. In March, it was 20%. The preferred platforms to hang out virtually, FaceTime and Zoom. And perhaps this is why we're seeing the increase. More than half of people say they feel lonelier since social distancing began. but many are finding a new way to cope with that loneliness. The same numbers say they actually feel like part of a community when they see their friends or family virtually.
What do you say to that person who is maybe doubting how good a Zoom experience can make you feel?
I would say first, like, bye.
Alex Kuman is a stand-up comedian. Pre-coronavirus, she hosted a comedy open mic night at Cole's Bar in Chicago, which is owned by this guy.
Did you ever think, like, as a bar like Cole's, would need a digital platform?
Never.
The Cole's crew set out to recreate the dive bar digitally. The new space to do it? A Zoom link. Then you add comedians, fold in a few audience members, and sprinkle in the secret ingredient that makes their spot special. For Cole's, that's the house band.
So let's just say hello to Alex Kuman.
Anytime that a comic comes up here and says anything you like, give him a round of applause. You can do jazz hands. Cole really sent this one on fire last week. A little jazz hand, a little spooky jazz hands if you're feeling spooky about it.
So how did last night compare to like your typical Wednesday night at Cole's?
It's a new experience. It's a new, like, how am I gonna like tell jokes without hearing laughter? Like, how long do I need to pause after a joke? Like, when I as I'm like writing these, I'm like, oh, this one's killer. This one's gonna crush. And then it's like, well, what does crushing mean? Like, oh, you got 10 jazz hands? Like, what is that? I have to talk about this in the way that I am accustomed to coping with things, which is through humor. And I think a lot of the comics did a really good job of like filtering this experience through their unique perspective.
What's up, Coles? How y'all doing?
From coast to coast, nearly 300 people showed up to share their stories of self-isolation, ranging from unexpected transformations.
I feel like I'm becoming a stay-at-home white mom. Just like the other day, I shotgun a White Claw and did all the dishes.
To living with someone with coronavirus.
I don't know if you've ever seen a coronavirus diagnosing doctor touch her own face because of the lifestyle that you lead.
While finding the humor in a harsh reality.
What's nice about this is if you're really stressed out at home, you can go take a walk and relax at a crowded grocery store, which is very calming. I love that. I love that energy.
It really fosters a connection and which I think is something that a lot of people are missing right now. Like actual physical human connection has been off the table for 4 weeks now.
I do find that these screens can be a real medium for bringing us connection, actual connection.
Seth Gillihan is a psychologist outside Philadelphia. He sees his patients virtually, wrote a book about managing anxiety, panic, and worry, and knows people may be wary about new forms of communication.
What would be your tip right now to kind of sort of combat that loneliness?
It kind of goes without saying to connect with others as much as we can, but I think there can be a tendency to let go of possible ways of connecting if we can't connect in our preferred way. Keep it moderate, keep it modest, and stay connected to people who lift you up.
Whether it's Club Quarantine on Instagram Live, a Skype watch party, or an open mic night on Zoom. Do it, but do it for you.
Stephen Colbert said something like, when you're laughing, you're not in a place of fear. You have to be thinking to be laughing, and you have to be engaged and present and in the moment. And if you are all of those things, then you are not thinking about how scary it is outside.
Stay safe and stay indoors.
Okay. Staying healthy and sane.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
I'm throwing in the towel for tonight, but I'll be back here for more In the Loop tomorrow, same time, same place. I also don't have anything else to do, so this is a good place for me. Don't go anywhere just yet. More top stories from Newsy are headed your way.